Hey everyone, this is Trisha Rivers, and you are watching the Native Hi-Fi podcast. And today's episode is dedicated to raising awareness of sex trafficking and domestic violence, especially during the holiday season. This is a time where folks are preoccupied with shopping, spending time with their loved ones, and getting into the Christmas spirit. However, this is an opportune time for sex traffickers to prey on vulnerable populations because of increased traveling and distractions. It's easy for anyone to miss red flags during the holiday season. This episode is meant to educate, empower, and encourage our tribal community to not only celebrate the holiday season, but to also stay protected and vigilant. With that, we would like to offer a trigger warning. A lot of the topic discussions are going to center around sex trafficking, domestic violence, and we definitely want to advocate for self-care before, during, after. Make sure that you are practicing your self-care and maybe having those conversations with friends, your family. This episode came about because there was a conversation that a Native man was having with a Native woman, and they got onto the subject of holiday shopping and, kind of having those common themes or the common tactics that we hear about, such as a zip tie on the car door, or maybe the baby car seat and the woman needing help. A lot of those things, maybe the Native man didn't necessarily think about. So when he had explored this conversation with a Native woman, it came about that, I need education. I need to know more about this. But not only that, our community actually needs to also listen to this as well. So here we are today. I have special guests here with me today. I have Rebecca from the Set Me Free Project. I have the police chief from the Winnebago Police Department, Jeremiah Lonewolf. And then I also have Thelma Whitewater, who is a Winnebago domestic violence advocate. In addition, we have Joe Galvin and DeAnna Parker, who are from the Omaha tribe. And so today we are talking about holiday safety. We are talking about empowerment, education, so that way you can enjoy your holidays, but also staying vigilant and staying protected. My first guest, I want to come onto the air and introduce themselves, which is Rebecca. Rebecca, can you hear me?
Yes. Well,
Awesome.
thank you for today. Yeah, so I'm Rebecca Saunders. I'm the Director of Programming with the Set Me Free Project, and we are all about human trafficking prevention education. So we educate from kindergarten, where we talk not about trafficking, but about, who's a safe person and consent and those types of things, all the way up through adulthood on human trafficking, healthy relationships, and social media safety.
So in short, what is sex trafficking?
Yeah, great question. So the definition we use that I feel like is pretty all-encompassing is it's the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel an individual to provide any type of commercial sex act. So that can be pretty all-encompassing, right? Any type of sexual activity or images or videos exchanged for something of value.
And why would we see an increase in sex trafficking during the holiday season?
Yeah, well, I think there's a myth out there that we'll see an increase in recruiting, but what you might actually see is an increase in selling. And so what we see is that while force, fraud, or coercion can be used as recruiting into sex trafficking, force is actually least likely to be used. So yes, worry about kidnapping, but if you're kidnapped, it may not be a trafficker, right? So still be cautious. But really what we're seeing is that they're using those fake relationships and manipulation, emotional control, things like that. And so building relationships with you to then recruit you into trafficking. What you may see more as you're traveling, though, is the selling of people. So we know that many trafficking survivors have been in hotels as they've been exploited. And so if you're traveling, you may be able to pick up on warning signs and call in tips to the hotline.
What are some common tactics used by traffickers?
Yeah. So we see a lot of that manipulation. And so force can be used. You may be kidnapped. It's not as likely, though. What we're seeing more of is building that relationship over time, taking someone through the grooming process, and then after you've built this fake relationship, then turning and exploiting them. So essentially making a person feel like, they owe it to their trafficker to allow that to occur. It's very manipulative.
Yes. It sounds like it's very insidious. It's not like a very how we see in the movies, correct? Like the mainstream media. It could happen, but it's more of a personal tie, so to speak, or a relationship that is built over time.
Yes. And similar to other things, other types of violence, it's more often someone you know, right? And so it's a lot, I think, easier for our brains to pick out those people that we're not comfortable with. But really, we need to look at our inner circles or people that may feel that we know, and just, be cautious. Watch out for those behaviors of manipulation and control.
Absolutely. So what should individuals do if they spot suspected sex trafficking, or maybe even be a part of sex trafficking? What are the resources? What can they do?
Yeah, great question. So I've got a couple of numbers here that are great to save. So the National Human Trafficking Hotline, that's 888-373-7888. And actually, Nebraska has its own human trafficking hotline too, which is 833-757-5665 or 833 please look. So those are good numbers to have on hand, but the way that you treat it is different depending on if it's an adult or a minor. So if you suspect any type of harm to a minor, you want to call the police right away. That's something that we always report. If it's an adult that you may not know, you're always free to call in tips to the hotline. But actually, calling the police on an adult who is being trafficked, who is not ready to report, could put them in more danger. So with adults, we want to have that conversation first and see if they're ready to call law enforcement.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think just, as we're thinking through trafficking and what warning signs you may see, sometimes you can see something and you're not sure what that might be. I would always encourage to seek out resources. The Set Me Free Project, we would love to be a resource, but also these hotlines. If you see something, say something. I think sometimes we're worried about causing a stir if it's not what we think, but really it's always better to over-report than under-report.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and folks can find you at setmefreeproject.com, or is there .net? Okay. Alrighty, our next guest is the police chief of the Winnebago Police Department, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself, and we'll get into the topic.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Jeremiah Lonewolf. I'm the chief of police for the Winnebago Tribal Police Department here in Winnebago. I was born and raised here. And as soon as I graduated from high school, Winnebago Public, I joined the military. And the United States Marine Corps, I left for a period of 8 years. After I got out, I got immediately into law enforcement. And I served as a tribal law enforcement officer for several years before I joined the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And I served with them for about 16 years before I decided to come back here and take this position on. So
today we're focusing on holiday safety and sex trafficking awareness. What are some current trends happening, especially during the height of the holiday season, such as like increased sex trafficking at hotels, social media activity? What are some of the current trends?
So I heard you guys kind of discussing some of that stuff. So, with the holidays, there's lots of increased travel during the holidays. And this kind of allows traffickers to kind of leverage online platforms and travel locations to kind of target victims. So everyone needs to kind of be aware of that. During the holidays, the demand becomes higher at hotel locations. So if we do, I know the tribe does operate the hotel out at the Winnebago Casino. So, of course, I'll be working with them to make sure that their staff are kind of looking at signs, how to spot trafficking activity. So that's something that we, definitely want to do. But I know that many of our members, our community, are going to be traveling. So I definitely want people to use caution. Some of the social media apps, Instagram, Snapchat, there's probably ones that haven't even heard of, because I'm older, so I'm not hip with all the stuff going on. So there's probably a lot of communication that people are going to be getting from those different sites or those people that are part of those online communities. So you really kind of need to be kind of careful. False job advertisements, things for modeling, gaming, out of town travel, stuff like that. Bartending jobs that may be advertised for out of town, looking for attractive people or stuff like that is something is kind of the trends that you really kind of have to look for.
Absolutely.
And then also, we have vulnerable youth. So holidays are not always a happy time, and a lot of people, they suffer from depression or other mental health problems. Financial instability during this time kind of leaves them really feeling vulnerable. So,
For sure.
they're looking for that acceptance and ways that they can connect with people, I think, so that leaves them kind of in a vulnerable spot as well. So make sure that, best thing I can say is, check on your people, check on your kids, make sure you're knowing what their online activity is.
Yes.
And just like I heard discussed earlier, the kind of the trend is that these traffickers are generally known to their victims. And this, like I said, this can extend during the holidays. If there's an unsafe family member or friend who has access to vulnerable children that may try to exploit them. So we really have to be careful.
Yep, and that means relatives too. So I think a lot of what I do know about sex trafficking education is that, it's a transaction, and it doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can be clothing, it could be food, it could be, getting those accessories maybe. So
Drugs.
Yep, drugs, absolutely drugs. So, and this is between two people. So it could be a child and an uncle. It could be a child and a mother. There's different scenarios, and I always want to make sure that we talk about our male relatives, because I think that kind of gets dismissed sometimes, or it kind of goes under the radar. And when it comes to online gaming, so like Roblox and Fortnite and, all those online gaming portals, it's essentially an open portal for anybody to communicate. So, and social media too, as far as, our younger relatives may post something, maybe they're having a really bad day, or maybe there's just, they feel that their life is not in the greatest place, and somebody online can have access to that, and they have access to your younger relatives. So just making yourself aware of that, especially during the holiday season, like you said, because it's supposed to be this warm, Christmas spirit, but not everybody feels that way when it's the holiday season. So definitely good point to talk about. What are some common tactics used? So we always have like the money on the windshield, the woman needing help with her baby, and she has a car seat in her car and she needs help with the baby. Are there any common, are those true at all? Are those something that you do see? And what should somebody do if they ever find themselves in a situation like that?
I think one of the most common tactic that I think that's really utilized within the community, especially Indian country, we see a lot of things that kind of that we need to overcome. Poverty is something that a lot of our families are dealing with, the economic hardships. And then, of course, we have generational trauma, sexual abuse, that kind of runs through Indian country, unfortunately. So the most common tactic that we kind of see is money. The promise to buy gifts, So it's not necessarily money, but it may be gaming systems, it may be fancy shoes or clothes. Some of that is, status symbols within the community. Whenever I was growing up, to own a pair of bona fide Nikes was like a really big deal, and it's something I've always carried with me through, that you have to have good shoes if you're going to go out.
Rite of passage.
A rite of passage. So that's something that our young people use kind of for social currencies. The latest Jordans or other shoes or clothing. That's something that they may be bribed with or something like that. So
for sure, absolutely.
Kind of like I said, the false job advertisements, modeling, gaming, and then it turns into something else once that person gets put into that situation. So, the other thing you guys kind of hit on too, building those emotional online attachments. I mean, that's how they kind of recruit, is they start giving people attention, commenting on, listening to them or being that shoulder, and then they just turn it into something where they're giving affection, which a lot of people maybe starve for and don't get it from their families or their friends or anything else. So they are able to be exploited, and they come to rely on that type of acceptance and everything else. So it's just something that we really have to look into. And then unfortunately they may let their guard down. They may start getting the enticement process where they're lured away from their families, or they're lured away. But the other thing that we kind of have to look at is the sextortion. And what I mean by that is they'll ask for maybe nude images or those kind of photos. And once they do receive them from that young person, they'll kind of blackmail them for money or for.
That's right. So it's manipulation.
Yes. So I'll send this out to all your friends, or I'll send this to your parents, and that you're like this, and so a lot of young people, unfortunately, they feel like they have nowhere else to turn whenever something like this happens. So, and just like mentioned earlier, the abductions and kidnappings are less common. They're still occur from time to time, but definitely situational awareness is key for our families, young people, extended family, everything like that. So if something kind of feels off, maybe it is. And if there's somebody that is suspected of something, better to contact law enforcement immediately so that we can investigate. So
absolutely. How can our community best protect themselves?
So a lot of, I think, training and open communication, something that we have to continuously work on identifying, and then just calling law enforcement if there's something. And if it's not law enforcement, there's other avenues to report something. There's the child abuse hotline. There's some of the other resources that were discussed earlier. We have a victim advocate. We have other domestic violence advocates within the community. So it doesn't have to just be law enforcement if you're uncomfortable with making a report. And we realize, but we have ways that, whenever a report is made, if it involves children, our law enforcement officers, we utilize the Child Abuse or Child Advocacy Center in Sioux City, where they're specifically trained to interview young children or children of all ages, so that they can get the information and try to avoid any additional trauma to that child as they go through that process. Should they be a victim of sex abuse or physical abuse or anything like that, there's ways that they're able to work with that child and help us gather the evidence that we need in order to build these cases. So that's some of the things that they do.
How is the Winnebago Police Department staying vigilant and protecting our tribal communities?
Well, a lot of, law enforcement can't do it themselves. And that's one of the things, is that we are involved with so many partners on so many different levels, at the federal level, at the state level, within the tribe itself, other tribal entities. So that's some of the biggest things, is that, we're constantly meeting with other entities, We have a lot of work groups established within the communities. We have our Eyes of a Child meeting. We have our multidisciplinary team meetings. We meet regularly with our other counterparts. We have the FBI Safe Trails Task Force that we're working on. We have our sexual assault nurse examiners that are part of our 12 Clans Health Center that we utilize. We they do a lot of the child forensic nurse examiners. So I mean, we have all these partnerships that help us build these cases, help us try to prevent, and then keep those lines of communication open so that we're comprehensively working together to try to make sure that the community is safe.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
So there's a lot of things that are actually part of the tribal code that may, taken in whole or in part, that kind of address aspects of human trafficking. So we actually have, we have pandering, we have terroristic threats, we have a restrain or abduct within the tribal code, kidnapping, false imprisonment, violation of custody, child abuse, contributing to the delinquency of a child, trafficking children. We actually have a code for that. Debauching a minor, obscenity, telecommunications violations, indecent liberties, video recordings or distribution of criminal assaults. I mean, those are the things, that we have as tools in place for us to be able to take action immediately. But then, of course, with Indian country, the tribe and the federal government have jurisdiction. So we will definitely reach out to our federal partners, and there are a lot of resources that are available. I know that we discussed the hotline already for human trafficking, but there's also a webpage if people are not able to make a call. It's https humantraffickinghotline.org/en, or the PolarisProject.org is another organization. And the Department of Homeland Security operates a blue campaign, so you can get materials. So I did bring some other resources. This is the Contact Blue through DHS. It helps with human trafficking, how we can get additional support. So there's all these different tip lines that they can contact. They can get training materials that we can hand out at meetings or anything like that. I believe this was developed with BIA, with the Treasury Department, in National Indian Gaming Commission for, examples of human trafficking, kind of like a resource guide that they put together. So there's just a lot of different things that, we can do. Like I said, there's small things that if we are brought to our attention that may start as a tribal violation, it may turn into a large-scale trafficking investigation. So we just have to make sure that people are keeping their eyes out, looking for these different things, and then calling us and getting us involved as early as they can.
Is there any other holiday safety tips? Maybe folks that are shopping or anything like that, as far as anything that you would like to share?
So a couple of things that we'd like to share is, of course, try not to advertise that you're going out of town, for the holidays, that your place is going to be sitting empty. Some other things is do not share on social media.
Don't be bougie, guys.
Some of the gifts that you receive that may, make you susceptible to break-ins or robberies or anything like that. So we want to make sure that you're safe. And then, one of the things to do, should that happen, if you do get things that you can record serial numbers. So if you get like a new Xbox or PlayStation, put those serial or take pictures of those serial numbers so that should they be stolen, you can provide that to law enforcement for a report, and then we can do that. And the other thing is, just keep your family informed of your travel and whereabouts so that they know that they can check in. So if they haven't heard from you in a little while, that we can figure out what's going on. And then some other things, especially with our SORNA program, that if we do have relatives, that are subject to those SORNA provisions, that we will have staff that are available during the holiday season so that they, should they come back to the reservation, they still need to be in compliance with the SORNA Act, that they will need to register. And we welcome them to come back, but part of their continuous accountability is for us to be able to monitor kind of where they are within their community. And our SORNA staff down at the police department, are definitely accommodate them during the holiday season to make sure they're properly registered and accountable to that. And then, everyone, hopefully if the weather is bad too, just make plenty of time for your travel arrangements. Don't travel unless you absolutely need to if the weather is bad. And if they're, we can check on folks out there. If there's any welfare checks or anything else that we can do for anyone, please contact our department. And just, if there's something that seems off or anything like that, just to contact law enforcement. And then, of course, one of the main ones is please don't drink and drive this holiday season.
Yes, be responsible.
Yep, we'll be out, and we don't want to see anyone lose their life or get seriously hurt or injured because of drinking and driving. So please stay safe out there.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Shout out to all of our essential workers, such as police departments and our advocates. We deeply appreciate you and protecting the community.
Okay, my name's Thelma Whitewater. I am a project coordinator, victim advocate at the Winnebago Tribal Court. And what I do is I help victims of all sorts of crime. It's not just domestic violence.
It's all crime.
Yes, it's all crime. So
for sure. On the topic of sex trafficking and domestic violence, for the sake of this episode, what are some of the key indicators of sex trafficking and domestic violence?
One thing to watch for when you're out and about in this busy holiday is to kind of keep an eye out for others. What you'll see would be somebody who's like, they're isolating themselves, they're withdrawn, maybe they're unkept because maybe they're withholding food or necessities that they may need. They don't want to communicate. It's like they have rehearsed answers, or everything's like rehearsed. Sometimes they can have like panic attacks or get anxiety. And what happens in these cases is if you see someone like that, what happens during the holidays is because it's so busy that it's easy for them to transfer from place to place.
I see.
During busy times. So that'd be kind of a time to kind of watch out for these things. And if you do suspect it, call law enforcement or call the human trafficking hotline. And with the DV ones is you'll kind of see like their physical, their emotional, and maybe their spouse is being controlling, those kinds of signs you might watch for as far as abuse.
I've always heard about the hand signal of the thumb going over or under, and you do your four fingers over the thumb. Is that still a signal for help for folks that are in situations where they cannot talk, or maybe they're just afraid? Or okay, I just wanted to clarify that too.
These times when kids are out of school during the holidays is when the parents need to really keep eye on their kids, because now is a time when they're going to go to social media. They're going to go on the internet, and a lot of times it's going to be unsupervised. So that's one of the things, one of the trends, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be watching for these online, for the, the teens and the kids. And the other trend, I think, would be the runaways at this time, because when they're home from holidays, maybe they get an argument or it's stressful, or, something comes up and they could run. And they could post on there that I'm depressed or whatever, and so predators are always watching online for any little thing, and they'll pick up on it. So I think those things are things to watch for. And then when you're like, they talked before about crowds and shopping and those types of things, that's when predators are out. So I want to say is always watch your surroundings when you're out shopping. Be alert at all times. Don't go off alone. Always have somebody with you, or let someone know exactly where you're going. Keep your phone charged. Keep your phone handy. What I tell my kids is use that 360. It's a phone app.
Oh, I
so
didn't
it
know
shows your location.
Oh, okay.
Wherever you're
turn
at.
your location
if
on.
you're driving, it'll show a little car putting along. Or if you're walking, it shows a
Little res
legs,
car, no.
So these types of things like that, to make sure that you have those on, so that your parent or whoever you share that with, it's only certain people you share it with. Not
Yeah, go
everybody.
ahead, Jeremiah.
Don't share it with people you don't know.
Yes.
Don't share it with people you just met online. Definitely, also too, to add to that, for like Xbox or PlayStation, please don't put your whole address on there. Make sure you tell
I didn't even know
your
you
kids-
could.
Tell your kids not to be sharing their address with anyone they communicate. I always, have to watch my kids too, make sure my son isn't talking with some weird random people. I always mute his chat or turn the chat off.
I turn it all off.
Turn it all off, stuff like that. But yeah, with that 360 app, I know there's a lot of people that check that, and a lot of people, may use that for bad situations or bad intentions if you share it with somebody that you don't want to have.
Just share with your
The folks that you trust
Yeah.
in your inner circles.
And the other thing I would suggest is carrying, what do they call those, Apple AirTags? You put them on
the
your
AirTags,
person,
yep.
or put them in somewhere, so that, they can.
They know where you're at.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those two.
Tracked in real time.
So as far as like online stuff, for the holiday, for the parents, just stay involved with your kids and their online life. Make sure you're monitoring that. And then if they are going to travel alone, or they're going to visit somebody, make sure that they have clear expectations on their trip on who they're going to contact and like that, and strengthen their emotional support. Be there for them. And then also know your resources in case something does happen. You know who to call, and you know what your next step is.
I do want to expand on, in the sense of domestic violence or maybe child abuse, to also stay vigilant on when we do have kids that are at home and may not be in an environment that is healthy.
Safe.
Yeah, healthy and safe. And so, just a reminder for all relatives to check on all of their relatives during the holiday season, pop up. This is a time where we're supposed to kind of spend time with each other, and that's what we should do. So again, just if you see something, say something, report it. What resources are available for those who may be in a situation right now and need help?
They can call me at the court, 402-878-2570. Or you can call the PD, 878-2245. Or they can call the Domestic Violence Program, and that's 402-745-3959.
Absolutely. Just a question. How do you communicate with nonverbal or trauma-impacted clients?
You can use visual support depending on what it is. We never know the reason why, they're nonverbal, but visual support, you can be more expressive with your facial, however you move, your tone of voice, and you would encourage them for any kind of communication, maybe say nod your head, or squeeze my hand if it's a yes, or no, whatever, those types of things. And then you got to give them time to respond. Don't be so rushed and like that. So kind of have patience with them. And then offer choices and how you're talking to them rather than having open-ended questions.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that, so I'm glad that you did share that. We did interview Joe Galvin and DeAnna Parker, so we're going to view that clip right now. They are also part of the Omaha tribe. Joe Galvin has served as a domestic violence advocate for the Omaha tribe, so we're going to view that clip right now. With your lived experience and the work experience, the educational experience, what are some key indicators of sex trafficking and domestic violence in your line of work? What have you seen? What are those signs that folks can actually look for, especially during the holiday season?
Well, I think it's not just during the holiday season. It's an everyday thing, and it's a reality for our native relatives, our people, especially our Omaha people. Through my 10 years within the program, there's so many things you could look for. There's a change of a physical appearance, attitude, the way they conduct and handle themselves within the community, because really you don't see them in the community anymore when these things are going on. It could range from having more money, having a nice car, indicators that indicate, hey, they're getting the benefit of what is going on with them, the traumatic experience. They don't even realize it is. And we've had this happen within our people, within our school system, down at Omaha Nation. And it's just a sickening thing for me, because when I first came to DV, I was asked just to help get the program back in compliance. And next thing you know, I'm there for 10 years. And the short time I was there in the beginning, I seen so much that it's like, man, it grew on me. The compassion, the heart I had to help our relatives, it grew, and I was like, man, back then DV was just small. So now, it's grown. We've got some solid people in there that have compassion and heart for what our relatives are going through, and those indicators they show themselves for sure. So
Absolutely.
with that, we have to continue our prayers to Creator Wakanda and keep our people in our prayers. So I hope.
For sure. DeAnna, are there any instances where you've maybe even through lived experience or anything in your community where you have seen key indicators of sex trafficking or domestic violence?
Yes, unfortunately, yes. There was a time, actually, I was just talking about this. In my experience, I was thinking, being in CFS on the reservation, it was my thought that the sex trafficking, like, that happens in the city. That's over there. We have to ensure that the children we have here, we have to safeguard them, we have to protect them, and having those thinking along those lines. But come to find out, it was happening right there. It was happening right under our nose. And we were able to get involved with some cases there where we were for me, it was really traumatic, and it was really eye-opening, and I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to hear it. None of that, because this is our safe place. This is our home. These are our homelands. But yet it was our own relatives that were doing this.
Yes.
To the youth, because it was youth that were involved in this. But the thing about it was, overall, it was drugs. It was all because drugs. These people were on drugs. They were into their use, their addictions so heavily that, they weren't realizing or recognizing the damage that was being done to the youth involved. So some really key signs, I guess, that we learned just from those instances was, I think one one scenario that Joe kind of touched on was our youth that were lost. They were on the system, they were in the system as far as school, CFS, but they weren't in the home they were supposed to be in. They weren't in the school every day. And then it wasn't until an officer from here, Winnebago, made it known, like, hey, we got this going on up here. So-and-so's been seen here once in a while, but we see that she's on the books for your tribe. So we all collaborated. We actually came up here to the school and met with the school system. We brought our school system and law enforcement. And we collabed, and we were able to pin it down that this youth was going not only back and forth between the two reservations, but the officers found that she was also in the city. And somehow she was making it to the city and she was actually in the city for periods of time. And we found out that when she did come back to the reservation, she was seen with expensive clothing, accessories that was kind of out of the norm for the reservation school. And so this youth stood out to officials. And so it was like, okay, this has been happening right under our nose.
Wow.
Not knowing. Honestly, I don't think we ever got a name or a person.
Oh, wow.
Who'd been taking her.
Oh, man.
If I could just add on to that, too. It's so, they could cover it up so well. I remember when I was there at DV, the first 3 or 4 years I was there by myself because of the program has gotten that weak. But during that time, there was a young female that was utilizing our services to go back and forth to the city.
Wow.
I mean, covered it up so well. And during that time, I was inexperienced. I was still learning about the job and the things that occur and things that, like DeAnna said, that, you don't think could happen here, but it's happening. It's happening. So, and then you open your eyes even more. Okay, I'm watching. So when you deal, we don't even like to call them clients, we just call them survivors. That's the normal term for domestic violence, well, as you know, Trisha. And those things that we collaborate on, because we and DeAnna, we worked together before, we're partners for life now. So,
Yeah.
So it's traumatic to yourself too, because you have to debrief. You have to take that time to say, man, just so you could refocus and help your relatives. So yeah, it's a very it's a disheartening topic for sure.
Absolutely. What should folks do in the event that they spot potential sex trafficking, domestic violence occurring?
I think within our laws, we need to change. We need to make every relative a mandatory reporter, in my opinion, because, like DeAnna mentioned, the drugs and the alcohol. It's not even really alcohol anymore. It's mostly drugs that really got these the effects, the side effects of drugs has really got them in a state of mind that they don't have no. How would you want to say it? No remorse or anything for what they do. It's just like, hey, these guys are doing it, I'm following suit. So I believe that we should all be mandatory reporters on a reservation, because I've had this difficult time with the state. As you well know, we could have non-natives or non-relatives come in here and practically commit murder and get away with it. So I've had these talks with the state many a times, and that individual that works for the state now, she's in a position to make a difference. So I'm hopefully, she's fighting that fight still, and And that you probably know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to mention names. But yeah, it's. I think everyone should be a mandatory reporter on a reservation, especially between the two reses that we have here, because they're doing things together, obviously.
So if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see some out of the norm, and that's what, as a people, we need to keep our eyes open even more. We should have training for every program, and then within our tribes to keep an eye out for these things.
For sure. DeAnna, is there any suggestions that you would have for anybody that would spot anything like this?
I think what you said is spot on. If you see something, say something. We're all mandatory reporters as far as child abuse or neglect, and so for me, like being a former director of CFS in ICWA, that was always something that was on my radar, you know. And still, you know, at times, you know, I have sympathy for people when I can kind of, when I pick up something, you know, that, oh my gosh, they're going through something. And sometimes people will ask for help, you know, reach out. And so my heart really goes out to them, and just know that if you're reporting something that you might see, that it's coming from your heart, you know, the best place, and not don't do anything malicious or you know, don't ever do something like that with bad intentions.
Yeah,
because it's not a good thing.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to mention that.
For sure. Resources are available to them. What resources are available to the tribal communities? Yeah.
Well, there's domestic violence resources, and you got programs, CFS, you got behavior health, law enforcement, the court system. You could get any kind of information, and if not, that program could guide you in the right direction. So the collaboration of programs is what you can look for, and the Family Resource Center where we're at is filled with resources. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our place because, again, keep your eyes open for unusual activity. Not being home during the holidays is a key indicator that something's going on with that relative. So, yeah, continue the prayers. Definitely got to continue the prayers, and you know, whatever you believe in, you know, take care of those them prayers and them traditions and ceremonies that, you know, you believe in. I went to a training in, I can't remember if it was Rapid City or Bismarck. It was with the men folks, and I don't want to leave them out because they go through it too. This training was really powerful. It was a good and heart wrencher for me. And I went, and she was supposed to go to that, but I went with one of my brother's uncles, and we were just like in lumps in our throat, tears in our eyes, and the things that our relatives go through, especially on the male side too. I mean, it's not good. So any indication that our relatives is going through something, you have to be there. You know, talking about family, we have to keep family close in our prayers and our hearts, and I don't see them. So yeah, I think, you know, again, I don't think it's just through the holiday season. It's an everyday walk of life for some of our relatives, and we have to keep them in mind every day. So I hope.
And that was Joe Galvin and DeAnna Parker from the Omaha Tribe. Thank you so much for spending time with us to do that interview. Again, just reiterating some of these holiday safety tips. If you're traveling, get your mail forwarded. You know, we don't want mail that's piled up to indicate that you're gone. Get automatic timers for your lights. Maybe ask a trusted neighbor to watch out for your things. If you are out for the evening, turn on the lights, maybe a television or radio so it doesn't seem like you're away. Be extra cautious about locking doors and windows when you leave, even if it's just for a few minutes. Do not display any gifts from the window, so just in case somebody wants to break into your house and get your gifts. If you're shopping, stay alert and be aware of your surroundings. Park in well-lit areas, and be sure to lock your door. You also have the panic button on the key fob, so while you are walking out to your car, it is there to use. Do not hesitate to ask for someone to come and walk you out to your car too as well. I will never ever feel any type of way to ask that for assistance out to my car. Avoid carrying large sums of cash. If you have a purse, zip it up. Keep your wallet in your front pocket. I think just staying vigilant, being ready, but also enjoy. If there's holiday parties, be very careful. Don't accept any drinks from strangers. Use the buddy system. That is the best way to kind of look out for each other.
Know your limits as well.
Yes, know your limits, drink responsibly. And I just want to say thank you to Thelma and Police Chief Jeremiah Lonewolf for being here. And that concludes our episode. So you can view us. Native Hi-Fi will be coming back. There's going to be some different changes, but we're excited and we hope that you learned from this episode, and please share out. Thank you.